His voice tore through the office like a gunshot. "Get out of my building, Ariella. You're finished here." I didn't even understand what I was hearing at first. My hand froze above the stack of reports I had just spent 3 nights perfecting. The rest of the staff stood completely still, like prey that didn't want to draw attention, while Mr. Haldon loomed over me, eyes sharp with a hostility I had never seen so naked before. His finger jabbed the air inches from my face. "You think I don't see what you're doing? You think I don't know you're plotting against me?" His lip curled, mocking. "You're nothing here, nothing." The humiliation hit me like a punch to the sternum, hot, dizzying, so sharp it made the room tilt. My cheeks burned. My throat tightened. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears as everyone pretended not to look at me and looked anyway. And still, beneath all of that, there was something else. A cold, still pocket of clarity forming in my chest. Before I tell you what happened next, if you've ever been humiliated by someone you trusted, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss how this ends. Your support means everything. I steadied myself on the edge of his desk, fingers trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the shock of knowing that the man I had protected, defended, and practically rebuilt for a decade was now throwing me into the street like I was disposable. He didn't fire me for incompetence. He didn't fire me for misconduct. He fired me because he was terrified, and I knew exactly why. My voice stayed steady, too steady. "Is this really how you want to do this?" He smirked. "Consider it generosity. I should have gotten rid of you years ago." The words burned, but they also lit a fuse. Around me, I could see my coworkers frozen in place. Some stared at their computers. Others pretended to shuffle papers. No one met my eyes. No one said a word. The silence felt thick, suffocating, like the air before a storm. I wanted to scream at them to ask why nobody was speaking up, but I already knew. They were scared. Scared of him. Scared of being next. And in that moment, I realized something that should have been obvious all along. I had been alone in this fight for years. The shockwave hit me in waves. My ears rang. My vision blurred at the edges. I felt my knees weaken but forced myself to stay standing. What did I do? The question looped in my mind like a broken record. Why is he doing this? My body went cold, then hot, then numb. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, burning into my skin, but when I tried to look around, they all turned away. It was like being erased in real time. Mr. Haldon crossed his arms, leaning back against his desk with a satisfaction that made my stomach turn. He was enjoying this. He liked seeing me fall. His eyes gleamed with something dark, something cruel. This wasn't just about firing me. This was about breaking me, about making an example, about reminding everyone in that room who had the power. I swallowed hard, forcing down the tears that threatened to spill. I wouldn't give him that. I wouldn't let him see me cry. But inside, I was collapsing. 10 years. 10 years of late nights, missed birthdays, canceled plans, 10 years of loyalty, and this was how it ended. As I walked out of the office with my box, trying not to cry, the realization hit me like a freight train. My boss fired me after 10 years of hard work, so I revealed his darkest secret. The thought formed slowly at first, then all at once, sharp and clear. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't need to. It was already written in the air between us, in the way his hands had trembled when he pointed at me, in the paranoia that had been building in his eyes for months. He thought firing me would erase the leverage I had. He was wrong. I pushed through the glass doors and stepped into the parking lot. The sunlight felt too bright, too harsh. My hands shook as I fumbled for my keys. The box of my belongings felt heavier with every step. Photos, a coffee mug, a planner filled with tasks I would never finish. All the pieces of a life I had built here, reduced to objects that could fit in a cardboard box. I reached my car, set the box in the passenger seat, and sat there in silence. My heart pounded. My thoughts raced. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the shock and the hurt, a small voice whispered, "He made a mistake." My name is Ariella Knox, and I spent a decade being the quiet backbone of Haldon & Co., managing crises he created, fixing deals he almost ruined, shielding him from consequences he deserved. I gave him everything. My time, my creativity, my loyalty, my sanity, and he repaid me with humiliation. Sitting in my car, I tried to breathe through the panic. 10 years of sacrifice. 10 years of believing that hard work would be rewarded, that loyalty meant something, that my efforts were building towards something real. I had skipped vacations to meet his deadlines. I had answered emails at midnight on weekends, on holidays. I had defended him when others questioned his decisions. I had made him look good, even when he didn't deserve it. And now, in seconds, it was all gone. No warning, no explanation. Just rage and accusations and the cold satisfaction in his eyes as he watched me leave. I leaned my head against the steering wheel and closed my eyes. The tears came then, hot and fast, spilling over before I could stop them. I didn't care anymore. There was no one here to see, no one to judge, just me and the wreckage of everything I thought I had built. 10 years earlier, I walked into Halden & Co. fresh out of college, full of hope, hungry to prove myself. I was 27, armed with a business degree and a belief that talent and effort would open doors. Mr. Halden was charming then, inspiring even. He had a way of making you feel seen, valued, like you were part of something bigger. He promised mentorship, growth, and stability. I gave him everything he asked for and more. In those early days, I thought I had found the perfect place. The office buzzed with energy. Projects felt meaningful. I worked late not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Mr. Halden praised my work in meetings, called me his star employee, and told me I had a bright future. I believed him. I believed in him. I didn't see the cracks forming. I didn't notice how his praise always came with conditions, how his support evaporated the moment I questioned him, how his charm masked something darker underneath. I was too young, too eager, too desperate to prove myself. And slowly, without realizing it, I became the person who held everything together while he took all the credit. The first cracks appeared about 3 years in, subtle at first. A sharp word here, an unnecessary insult there. He started losing his temper over small things, snapping at employees in ways that felt disproportionate. I excused it as stress. The company was growing. The pressure was building. Everyone has bad days, I told myself, but the bad days became more frequent. He became obsessed with control, micromanaging projects he used to trust us with. He questioned every decision, second-guessed every choice, as if he couldn't bear to let anyone else succeed without his direct involvement. I started noticing how he spoke to women differently than men, how he dismissed ideas from female employees only to praise the same ideas when a man repeated them. How he belittled accomplishments, downplayed achievements made us feel small. Still, I stayed. I told myself it would get better. I told myself I was overreacting. Then one afternoon, a document went missing from his desk, an important contract that was supposed to be filed that day. He stormed into the common area, face red, voice loud. "Who took it?" His eyes scanned the room and landed on me. "Ariella, did you move my files?" I hadn't. I told him so. But the accusation hung in the air, heavy and ugly, and I realized something. He didn't trust me. He never had. 2 years ago, I accidentally uncovered the secret. I was working late, organizing old files in the company archive, when I found a folder buried at the back of a cabinet. It wasn't labeled. It wasn't supposed to be there. Curiosity pulled me forward. I opened it. Inside were financial documents, records of transactions that didn't match our official books, payments made to accounts I didn't recognize, amounts that had been hidden, disguised, moved around in ways that made my stomach drop. I stared at the pages, my hands shaking. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate fraud, misreporting, possibly theft. And it had Mr. Halden's signature all over it. I closed the folder and shoved it back where I found it. My heart raced. My mind spun with questions. What do I do? Who do I tell? What happens if he finds out I know? I didn't sleep that night. I replayed every possibility, every outcome. If I reported it, I could lose my job. If I stayed silent, I was protecting a criminal. But something stopped me from acting. Fear, maybe, or loyalty to the career I had built here, or the naive hope that maybe I was wrong, that there was an explanation I didn't understand. I never told a soul, but the knowledge sat inside me, heavy and cold, changing everything. The next day, Mr. Halden's behavior changed. It was subtle at first, less trust, more monitoring. He started asking pointed questions about what I was working on, where I had been, what files I had accessed. His eyes followed me across the office. His questions felt like interrogations. I tried to act normal, to keep my face neutral, to pretend nothing had changed. But he sensed something. I could see it in the way he watched me, the way his jaw tightened when I spoke, the way his friendliness evaporated into cold professionalism. Hostility disguised as feedback became the norm. He criticized work he used to praise. He questioned decisions he used to support. He began excluding me from meetings I should have been in, forwarding my emails to others without explanation. It was like he was building a case against me, brick by brick, preparing to push me out. I felt the ground shifting under my feet. The job I loved was becoming a place I dreaded. And the man I once admired was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe, I realized with a sinking feeling, he was always this person. And I was just finally seeing it. 10 years of carrying his weight. That's what it had been. I saw it clearly now. All those sleepless nights rewriting his proposals because his first drafts were incoherent. All those tense client meetings where I smoothed over his mistakes, redirected conversations, salvaged deals he had nearly destroyed with his ego. All those times I stayed late to fix problems he created during the day. The company ran because of me. Everyone knew it. Coworkers thanked me quietly in the hallways, sent me grateful emails, and relied on me to keep things stable. But publicly, Mr. Halden took all the credit. He stood in front of investors and board members, delivering presentations I had written, celebrating successes I had engineered, accepting praise for work he barely understood. And I let him. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself the work was its own reward. But deep down, it hurt. It hurts to be invisible. It hurt to watch him rise while I stayed in the shadows. Then one afternoon, I overheard him in his office, the door slightly open, talking to someone on the phone. His voice carried into the hallway. "Ariella, she's fine, competent enough, but honestly, I could replace her in a week." The words stopped me cold. I stood there, frozen, as he laughed. Replace her in a week. 10 years reduced to nothing. 2 months before the firing, he became erratic, paranoid. He started calling me into his office multiple times a day, asking bizarre questions, accusing me of things I hadn't done. He questioned my loyalty, my intentions, my honesty. "Why are you asking so many questions about the budget?" He demanded one afternoon, eyes narrow. I wasn't. I had asked one clarifying question during a meeting. "Are you going through my files?" He asked another day, leaning forward in his chair, studying my face. I wasn't. I had been organizing the shared drive, something I did every month. His paranoia was spiraling. He saw threats everywhere, enemies in every shadow, and somehow I had become the focus of his fear. Then it got worse. He started digging into my personal life. He asked colleagues about me, questioned my habits, searched for dirt he could use. I heard about it through Marin, one of the few coworkers I trusted. "He's asking weird questions about you," she whispered during lunch one day. "Like he's looking for something." My stomach twisted. He was building a case, not based on facts but on fear, and I had no idea how to stop it. Final week felt like walking into a trap every single day. He called me into his office 5 times a day, sometimes more, looking for proof that I was plotting against him. His questions grew sharper, his tone more aggressive. "You think I don't see the way you look at me?" he said one afternoon, standing too close, voice low and threatening. I stepped back. "I don't know what you mean. You think you're smarter than me, you think you run this place." His eyes burned with something dangerous. "You don't." "You never did." I kept my composure. I refused to give him emotional ammunition. I answered his questions calmly, kept my face neutral, and didn't rise to the bait. But inside, I was screaming. I knew something was coming. I could feel it building, like pressure before an explosion. I started keeping records, emails, messages, dates, and times of every strange interaction. I didn't know what I would do with them, but instinct told me I would need proof. The tension in the office was unbearable. People avoided eye contact. Conversations stopped when I entered the rooms. Everyone could feel the storm coming, and I was standing right in its path. The day he fired me, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. His rage revealed fear. He wasn't angry at my performance. He was terrified that I could expose him. When he pointed at me, screaming accusations, I noticed the tremor in his hand. When he leaned forward, eyes wild, I saw the sweat on his forehead. He wasn't in control. He was panicking. And at that moment, I understood. He had convinced himself that I was the threat, that I was plotting to destroy him, that firing me was self-defense. But the truth was simpler and sadder. He was a man whose empire was built on lies, and he knew it was only a matter of time before someone noticed. That someone was me, and he couldn't risk it. So he lashed out, hoping that removing me would remove the danger. But he made a critical mistake. He assumed I would go quietly. He assumed I would disappear, broken and silent, too afraid to fight back. He didn't know me as well as he thought, and he had no idea what I was capable of when pushed to the edge. At home, silence. No job, no plan, no explanation. I sat on my couch staring at the wall, mind blank, body numb. The weight of 10 years crashed down on me all at once. Everything I had worked for was gone. My career, my reputation, my sense of purpose, all stripped away in minutes. The panic started slowly, then built into something overwhelming. My chest tightened. My breathing became shallow. I felt like I was drowning in the air. How do I explain this to people? What do I put on a resume? He's my only reference. Without him, I'm nobody on paper. The thoughts spiraled faster and faster, dragging me down. I tried to eat but couldn't. Tried to sleep but lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over. His words echoed in my head. You're nothing here. Nothing. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was nothing without him. Maybe I had built my entire identity around a job that never valued me. The days blurred together. I stopped answering my phone. Stopped checking emails. I moved through my apartment like a ghost, disconnected from everything. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the grief and the fear, a small spark of anger began to burn. Days passed. Sleepless nights bled into exhausted mornings. Anxiety gnawed at my ribs, constant and relentless. But one night I sat up straight in bed, heart pounding, and the fog in my mind cleared. He fired me because I'm the only one who knows the truth. The realization was so obvious I almost laughed. All his paranoia, all his accusations, all his rage, it wasn't about me at all. It was about what I knew. The folder in the archive, the financial records, the fraud he had been hiding for years. He fired me to protect himself, and in doing so, he made the biggest mistake of his life, because now I had nothing left to lose. A calm began to replace the panic. Not peace exactly, but clarity. A sense of purpose I hadn't felt in days. I wasn't going to let him destroy me. I wasn't going to let him win. I would rebuild. I would move forward. And if his empire crumbled along the way, well, that would be his own doing, not mine. I got out of bed and opened my laptop. It was time to start planning. I decided to rebuild, not retaliate. I updated my resume, scrubbing away the bitterness, focusing on accomplishments that spoke for themselves. I reached out to old contacts, people I had worked with before Haldon & Co., people who remembered me before I became invisible. Some didn't respond. Others offered polite sympathy but no opportunities. A few, though, surprised me. They asked questions. They wanted to know what happened. I kept my answers vague, professional. I didn't badmouth Mr. Haldon. I didn't spill secrets. I simply said it was time to move on. The days were hard. I woke up with panic attacks that left me gasping for air. I fought through waves of doubt that told me I wasn't good enough, that I would never find anything better, that I had wasted 10 years of my life. But I kept going. I applied for jobs. I prepared for interviews. I practiced answering questions about why I left my last position without sounding bitter or broken. And slowly, painfully, I started to feel like myself again. Not the person I was at Haldon & Co., always walking on eggshells, always trying to please someone who would never be pleased, but the person I was before that, strong, capable, whole. Through old coworkers, I started hearing whispers. Clients were pulling out, reports were being filed inconsistently, projects were collapsing. All the things I used to fix, all the fires I used to put out, they were burning unchecked now. Marin called me one evening, voice tight with stress. "It's chaos here," she said. "He's losing it, yelling at everyone, firing people left and right. Nothing's getting done." I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. See, I wasn't disposable. I was holding that place together. But another part of me felt sad, for the employees who were suffering, for the clients who were caught in the middle, for the waste of it all. Then Marin dropped the real news. The board called an emergency meeting. My heart skipped. Why? I don't know, but people are scared. They think something big is about to happen. I thanked her and hung up, mind racing. An emergency board meeting meant serious problems, financial problems, legal problems, the kind of problems that came from secrets buried too deep for too long, and I knew exactly what secret they might uncover. Mr. Haldon spiraled. I heard about it through the grapevine. He sent out angry company-wide emails, blaming employees for failures that were clearly his own. He started firing more people, convinced that disloyalty was spreading like a disease. The atmosphere at Haldon & Co. became toxic. People walked on eggshells. Morale collapsed. Talented employees started leaving for other jobs, unwilling to endure the chaos. And through it all, Mr. Haldon kept repeating the same thing. This was Ariella's fault. Even after I was gone, even after I had disappeared from his life completely, he blamed me. He told people I had sabotaged projects before leaving. He claimed I had poisoned the team against him. He painted me as a traitor, a snake, someone who had been plotting his downfall from the beginning. None of it was true, but the lie gave him comfort. It gave him someone to blame other than himself. And for a while, people believed him. They needed someone to blame, too. It was easier to point at me, the absent villain, than to admit the truth. That their leader was failing. That the company was collapsing under his incompetence. That everything was falling apart because the person who held it together was gone. Then something unexpected happened. A third-party auditor requested access to old company archives. The same archive where I had found the hidden folder 2 years ago. The timing felt suspicious. Too convenient. Someone had tipped them off, but it wasn't me. I had been silent since the day I was fired. I hadn't contacted investigators, hadn't sent anonymous tips, hadn't reached out to board members. I had simply stepped back and let the chips fall where they would. Yet somehow the truth was surfacing anyway. Marin called again, voice shaking. They're going through everything. Old files. Financial records, years of transactions. I stayed quiet, heart pounding. Do you know what they're looking for? She asked. I did, but I didn't say it. No idea. She paused. Ariella, if there's something bad in those files, if they find something, this whole company could go down. I closed my eyes. Then maybe it should. The words came out colder than I intended. But they were true. If Halden and Co. was built on lies, then it deserved to fall. And if Mr. Halden's secrets were finally coming to light, then he would face the consequences he had been running from for years. A few days later, Marin reached out again. This time she was trembling. I could hear it in her voice, the fear, the disbelief. The auditors found something. My heart raced. I gripped my phone tighter. What did they find? There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, heavy and uneven. I can't say it over the phone, but it's bad, Ariella, really bad. The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, mind spinning. This was it. The moment everything would change. The secret Mr. Halden had been hiding, the fraud he had buried in that forgotten folder, was about to explode into the open. And I had done nothing. I hadn't exposed him. I hadn't sent the auditors. I hadn't plotted revenge. I had simply stopped protecting him. I had stopped covering his tracks, stopped fixing his mistakes, stopped shielding him from consequences. And without me there to clean up his mess, the truth had emerged on its own. It felt strangely poetic. For 10 years, I had been his safety net, and the moment I stepped away, he fell. Fraud, misreporting, stolen intellectual work, years of deception. Everything Mr. Halden had hidden came crashing down in a single devastating report. The auditors found it all. Falsified financial statements, payments to shell accounts, contracts signed under fake names, intellectual property stolen from former employees and claimed as his own. It was worse than I had imagined, and it had been happening for over a decade. The board suspended him immediately. Company assets were frozen pending a full investigation. Employees were questioned. Clients were notified. The scandal spread like wildfire. I watched it unfold from the outside, reading articles, hearing updates from former coworkers. And through it all, Mr. Halden's reaction was the same. Denial, rage, blame. He screamed at board members, insisting he had done nothing wrong. He hired lawyers and threatened lawsuits. He sent desperate emails to employees, begging for loyalty, demanding they stand by him. But no one did. One afternoon, security escorted him out of the building. Marin sent me a video someone had filmed. Mr. Halden, red-faced and furious, shouting as guards led him to his car. "This is her fault," he screamed, pointing wildly. "Arilla did this." But his voice sounded hollow, desperate, and no one was listening anymore. I didn't destroy him. He did that himself. That truth settled over me like a weight lifting. I had spent weeks wondering if I was responsible, if my silence had been a weapon, if stepping away made me complicit in his downfall. But watching everything unravel, I understood. I didn't create his fraud. I didn't forge documents or steal money or lie to clients. I didn't plant evidence or tip off auditors. I simply stopped being the person who cleaned up his messes. For 10 years, I had been the barrier between Mr. Halden and the consequences of his choices. I had smoothed over his mistakes, covered his tracks, made him look competent when he wasn't. I had protected him not because I wanted to, but because my job depended on it. And the moment I left, the protection disappeared. Without me, his lies couldn't survive. His incompetence became obvious. His fraud surfaced. His empire collapsed under the weight of its own rot. I didn't destroy him. I just stopped saving him, and that, I realized, was enough. 2 months after the scandal broke, I received an unexpected email. It was from a prestigious competitor, a company I had admired for years. The subject line read, "Opportunity." My hands shook as I opened it. They had been watching my work for years, the email explained. They knew the truth about Halden and Co., that I had been the one running things behind the scenes. They were impressed by my skills, my professionalism, my ability to hold everything together under impossible circumstances. They wanted to offer me a position, senior project manager, leadership track, higher pay, better benefits, respect. I stared at the screen, unable to believe what I was reading. This was everything I had wanted, everything I had worked for, everything I deserved. But I hesitated. Why? Because part of me was still scared. Scared of trusting another company, scared of being used again, scared of giving everything only to be discarded when it was convenient. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. Outside, the world moved forward. People lived their lives, unaware of the battle I had been fighting, and I realized something. I couldn't let fear control me forever. I had rebuilt myself once. I could do it again. This time, I would go in with open eyes. Mr. Halden lost everything. His position, his reputation, his wealth, his freedom. The investigation revealed years of criminal activity. Investors sued. Former employees came forward with their own stories of abuse and manipulation. The media tore him apart. Everything he had built, every lie he had told, every person he had hurt, it all came crashing down in spectacular fashion. And through it all, he tried one last time to blame me. He gave an interview to a business journal, claiming I had sabotaged him out of jealousy, that I had been plotting against him from the beginning, that I was the real criminal. But no one believed him. The evidence was too clear. The fraud is too obvious. His desperation is pathetic. For the first time in his life, Mr. Halden was powerless. He couldn't charm his way out, couldn't manipulate the narrative, couldn't bully people into silence. He was exposed, humiliated, and alone. And I felt nothing, not satisfied, not revenge, just a quiet sense of justice. He had spent years making people feel small, invisible, worthless. Now he knew how it felt. I accepted the new job. Walking into the building on my first day felt surreal. The office was bright, modern, filled with people who smiled and greeted me warmly. My new boss shook my hand and said, "We're lucky to have you." Lucky to have me, I almost cried. For 10 years, I had been treated like I was replaceable, disposable, a tool to be used and discarded. And now I was being welcomed like I mattered. The work was challenging but fair. My ideas were heard. My contributions were recognized. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't carrying someone else's weight. I was building something real, something mine. One afternoon, I stood in my new office, sunlight streaming through the window, and felt my chest loosen for the first time in years. I could breathe. I could think. I could be myself without fear. This was what I deserved. This was what I had been fighting for, and I had finally found it. Looking back, I see the truth clearly. Mr. Halden's empire collapsed because the one woman he underestimated refused to carry his sins anymore. He thought firing me would erase the threat. Instead, it freed me. It freed me from the obligation to protect him. It freed me from the lie that loyalty meant suffering in silence. It freed me from the belief that my worth was tied to his approval. And in that freedom, I discovered something powerful. I didn't need him. I never did. The skills were mine. The work was mine. The strength was mine. He had just convinced me otherwise. Now I walk forward with quiet pride, knowing I didn't destroy him. His arrogance did. His greed did. His cruelty did. I simply stopped holding up the walls of a house that was always meant to fall. What would you do in this situation? If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or pushed aside, I hope my story reminds you that your worth isn't defined by people who refuse to see it. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss more stories about standing up for yourself when no one else will. Thank you for listening.